the knowledge is actually completely is incomplete. When I talk about sophistication,
Mhm.
they understood imperialist systems better than we do. People are talking about Palestine and the other visible conflicts or conflicts that are visible to us in the West as separate entities. They're being like, oh, Palestine, Congo, Sudan, Ukraine. No, they're all part of the same system. Let me demonstrate. So, conflict materials mined in Congo and the Democratic Republic of the Congo and adjoining countries like Angola, so on, are somehow end up in the hands of Boeing and General Dynamics and Raytheon, defense contractors who file something called a specialized disclosure report with the Security and Exchange Commission. This report basically says we use conflict materials in our production processes. And no, because of third party sellers, we have no idea where they come from. They know that some of this, a significant portion of what they're getting is potentially and probably mined by enslaved children. So those things that are like tungsten, coltan, wolframite, like all these conflict materials go into the fancy JDAM guidance packages that they slap on the back of the bomb to make it a precision weapon. And those conflict materials mined in Congo are being dropped on Gaza. So that's just, that's just how
So
gnarly
it's
it
not
gets.
just, oh, this is fueling our phones or our electric cars.
Mm-mm. Because those fancy guidance packages that are used in military technology, they require a lot of that stuff. The real fancy stuff that you find in Central Africa. So they're connected. The reason, and Sudan's a whole thing. It's beyond the scope of this conversation, but yes, they're definitely Israeli and American.
There's a Sudan common sense kickback coming up shortly. Just so
Yeah,
y'all know. Just so y'all know.
yeah, that's definitely worth talking about. The same interests that are involved in Central Africa and Ukraine and Palestine are involved there as well. Because there's a there's a lot of Sudan's very mineral rich. We'll just say that, and it's in a strategically important position.
Right.
So it's all connected. The reason Palestine is so important, though, it kind of, I don't want to say it takes preeminence, but it's the one thing that we can put pressure on and use it as a lever to open up the other things.
Yes.
Because we have no leverage on Congo. You like no one's going to be out in the streets protesting for an end to the war in Ukraine. It's just not going to happen for a lot of cultural, like socio-cultural reasons.
It's also a clearer through line of like what's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Like when people say what's going on in Palestine is complicated, like that's bullshit. But when people say what's going on in the Congo is complicated, it actually is. Like there's so many players that you have to really like, and everybody who's involved has like a different interest. Like it's not even like, oh, we're all here for the same reason.
Yeah, and I'll say this about the Congo. It's also more complicated because we have less control over, because it's not just Western imperialism. It's also Chinese imperialism. It's Russian imperialism. Russian mercenaries are all over Africa doing the dirty shit. So we have less control over that right now. But Palestine is the simplest. It's the one we can directly put pressure on at the moment. And if you gain ground there, you can gain ground elsewhere. So as I said, it's the lever. But when it comes to becoming more sophisticated, it's recognizing this as a system, which is as a power structure, right? And because people tend to hyperfixate on things that I don't think are helpful. One example of this is the defense industrial complex. People are like, oh, they're sending more bombs just so Raytheon and Boeing can make more money. It's like, not really. Those bombs are already paid for. They're already built. That's not where the real money is. The real money is actually coming from weapons testing in Gaza, because like drones are something that are being actively tested, surveillance equipment in West Bank, stuff that will eventually be used on Americans. Okay. So, like, we can talk about bombs dropped in another country all we want, but if you want to activate someone's self-interest, all that security equipment that's being tested in West Bank, all those like automated riot control dystopian sci-fi, auto targeting guns. Yeah, they're gonna be totally trying those out in Cop City in Atlanta and all the other cop cities that are built around the country, mostly in response to the BLM movement and how out of control the police thought that got. So yeah, if you don't think this isn't coming home to roost, you're I don't want any of what you're smoking because it's way too intense for me.
I mean, they broke ground on a cop city in Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
and they did put plans together for a cop city in Baltimore, which I heard from the Baltimore mayor when I interviewed him that it ain't got nothing to do with it with what's already there. Like that was just an independent. And I'm like, yeah. But do I sound conspiracy? So okay.
No, I'll tell you why. But say that, and I'll tell you why you're not.
What do you think I'm going to say?
No, I don't know. I don't know, but it's not a conspiracy. And I can whatever it is, it's not. I can prove it. So go ahead.
Do you think there's any legitimacy to the possibility of Israel using that stuff on us?
I mean, they probably already. I mean, we already
like
know they
for their
spy.
own gain. Like for their own gain. Like I feel like what I'm watching is Netanyahu like very loudly pull his dick out and be like, yeah, Biden, I'll like knock your wobbly ass over with my Israel dick. And why Biden just keeps being like, and I'm like,
yes, sir. Can I please have some more?
Please, some more food, sir. Food, glorious.
Yeah.
Glorious dick. Like I'm just like, where are the? I feel like Netanyahu literally like waited for a simp like Biden to come into the mix so that he could run shit. Because if you see Netanyahu when he would sit with other folks, with other presidents, they'd be like, "We running this, not you." Biden's like, "Can we be friends? I want to be Zionist." So I'm just wondering if there's any like reverse imperialism that can come out of this, because I think America thinks that they're running shit and they're actually getting run.
See, okay, so I think trying to separate it like they're two separate entities in this regard is incorrect. I think they form like a symbiotic relationship. They're so enmeshed at this point.
Realities when like the symbiosis ends up being like, okay, so as somebody who has dated men who think they're smarter than me, right?